Chapter 32 of Free Air. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Free Air by Sinclair Lewis. Chapter 32. The Cornfield Aristocrat. It was an innocent little note from Jeff Saxton. A polite, humble little note. It said that Jeff had a card to the Astoria Club, and wouldn't Milt please have lunch with him. But Milt dropped it on the table, and he walked around it as though it were a dictograph which he'd discovered in the table drawer after happy, hidden hours at counterfeiting. It seemed more dangerous to refuse than to go. He browned the celebrated new shoes. He pressed the distinguished new trousers with a light and quite unsatisfactory flat iron. He retied his best spotted blue bow. It persisted in having the top flaps too short, but the retying gave him spiritual strength, and he modestly clumped into the aloof brick portal of the Astoria Club on time. He had never been in a club before. He looked at the red-tiled floor of the entrance hall. He stared through the hall into an immense lounge with the largest and softest chairs in the world, with oil portraits of distinguished old bucks, and 90% of the wealth and power of Seattle pulling its several mustaches, reading the P.I., and ignoring the lone intruder out in the hall. A small Zulu in blue tights and brass buttons glared at Milt, and a large, soft, suave, insulting young man demanded, "Yes, sir?" "Mr. Geoffrey Saxton," ventured Milt. "Not in, sir." The "sir" sounded like, "and you know it." The flaming guardian retired behind a narrow section of a bookkeeper's desk, and ignored him. "I'm to meet him for lunch," Milt forlornly persisted. The young man looked up, hurt and annoyed at finding that the person was still to be dealt with. "If you will wait in there," he groaned. Milt sat "in there," which was a small blue tapestry room with hard chairs intended to discourage bill collectors. He turned his hat round and round till he saw Jeff Saxton, slim and straight and hard as the stick hooked over his arm, sailing into the hall. He plunged out after him, took refuge with him from the still unconvinced inspection of the hall man. For 20 seconds he loved Jeff Saxton, and Jeff seemed to adore him in turn. He solicitously led Milt to the hat-checking counter. He showed Milt the lounge and the billiard room, through which Milt crept with erect shoulders and easy eyes, and a heart simply paralyzed with fear that one of these grizzled club men with clipped mustaches would look at him. He coaxed Milt into a grill that was a cross between the Chinese throne room and a Viennese Weinstube, and he implored his friend Milt to do him the favor of trying the "very fair English mutton chops and potatoes au gratin." "I did want to see you again before we go east, Daggett," he said pleasantly. "Thanks. When do you go?" "I'm trying to get Miss Boltwood to start soon now. The season is opening in the East. She does like your fine, sturdy West, as I do, but still, when we think of the exciting new shows opening, and the dances, and the touch with the great world, oh, it does make one eager to get back." "That's so," risked Milt. "We, Daggett, in fact, I'm going to call you Milt, as Claire does. You don't know what a pleasure it has been to have encountered you. There's a fine, keen courage about you Western chaps that makes a cautious old fogey like me envious. I shall remember meeting you with a great deal of pleasure." Thanks. Been a pleasure to meet you." "And I know Claire will, too." Milt felt that he was being dealt with foully. He wanted to object to Saxton's acting as agent for Claire, as incompetent, irrelevant, immaterial, and no foundation laid. But he could not see just where he was being led, and with Saxton glowing at him as warmly and greasily as the mutton chops, Milt could only smile wanly and reflectively feel the table leg to see if it was loose enough to jerk out in case of need. Saxton was being optimistic. "In fact, Claire and I both hope that some day when you've finished your engineering course we'll see you in the East. I wonder As I say, my dear fellow, I've taken the greatest fancy to you, and I do hope you won't think I'm too intimate if I say that I imagine that even in your charming friendship with Miss Boltwood you've probably never learned what important people the Boltwoods are. I thought I'd tell you so that you could realize the privilege both you and I have in knowing them. Henry B. is, while not a man of any enormous wealth, regarded as one of the keenest intellects in New York wholesale circles. But beyond that, he is a scholar, and a man of the broadest interests. Of course the Boltwoods are too modest to speak of it, but he was chiefly instrumental in the establishment of the famous Brooklyn Symphony Orchestra. And his ancestors clear through. His father was a federal judge, his mother's brother was a general in the Civil War, and afterwards an ambassador. So you can guess something of the position Claire holds in the fine, quiet, solid old Brooklyn set. Henry Ward Beecher himself was complimented at being asked to dine with the Boltwoods of his day. And, no, the table leg wouldn't come loose. So it was only verbally that the suddenly recovered Milt attacked. Certainly is nice to have one of those old families. It's something like, as you say, you and I have gotten pretty well acquainted along the line, so I guess I can say it to you. My father and his folks came from that same kind of family. Father's dad was a judge back in Maine, and in the war, Granddad was quite friendly with Grant. This tribute of Milt to his grandsire was loyal but inaccurate. Judge Daggett, who wasn't a judge at all but a J.P., had seen General Grant only once, and at the time the judge had been in company with all the other privates in the 14th Maine. Dad was a pioneer. He was a doctor. He had to give up all this easygoing stuff in order to help open up the West to civilization. But I guess it was worth it. He used to do the hardest kind of operations on kitchen tables with his driver giving the chloroform. I'm mighty proud of him. As you say, it's kind of what you might call inspiring to belong to the old Pilgrim aristocracy. Never before had Milt claimed relation to a group regarding which his only knowledge was the information derived from the read school history to the effect that they all carried blunderbusses, put people in the stocks for whistling, and frequently said, "Why don't you speak for yourself, John?" But he had made his boast with a clear eye and a pleasant, superior, calm smile. "Oh, very interesting," grunted Saxton. "Would you like to see grandfather's daguerreotype?" "Oh, yes, yes, thanks, that would be very interesting. Do let me see it when, as I was saying, Claire doubtless has a tremendous social career before her. So many people expecting her to marry well. Of course she has a rather unusual combination of charm and intelligence, and, in fact, I think we may both be glad that—" "Yes, that's right. And the best thing about her is the way she can shake off all that social stuff and go camping and be a regular human being," Milt caressed. No doubt, no doubt, though, of course, though that isn't an inherent part of her. I fancy she's been rather tired by this long trip, poor child. Of course she isn't very strong." "That's right. Real pluck. And of course she'll get stronger by hiking. You've never seen her bucking a dangerous hill. I kind of feel that a person who hasn't seen her in the wilds doesn't know her." "I don't want to be contradictory, old man, but I feel on the other hand that no one who has failed to see her at the Junior League dances, in a poiree frock, can know her. Come, come. Don't know how we drifted into this chorus of praise of Claire. What I wanted to ask was your opinion of the Pierce Arrow. I'm thinking of buying one. Do you think that—" All the way home Milt exulted. "I put it all over him. I wasn't scared by the don't butt into the aristocracy, my young friend stuff. I lied handsome. But, darn it, now I'll have to live up to my New England aristocracy. Wonder if my granddad's dad was a hired man or a wood sawyer. Never mind, I'm Daggett of Daggett from now on." He bounded up to his room, vaingloriously remarking, "I'm there with the ancestors. I was brought up in the handsome city of Schoenstrom, which was founded by a colony of Vermont Yankees, headed by Herman Skumaltz. I was never allowed to play with the Dutch kids, and—" He opened the door. "The Schoenstrom minister taught me Greek and was my bosom friend—" He stopped with his heart in his ankles. Lolling on the bed, grinning, waving a cigarette, was Bill McGolwey, proprietor of the Old Home Lunch of Schoenstrom, Minnesota. "Where the heck did you come from?" stammered the deposed aristocrat to his bosom friend Bill. "You old lemon pie faced, lollygagging, flap footed, crab nosed son of misery. Gee, but it's good to see you, Milt." Bill was off the bed, wringing Milt's